Hello and welcome to episode 38 of our Conversation to Connect. Let's Get Real Talk, powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm CyndiONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. At Exceptional Connections, we offer intentional and innovative solutions to boost your business. And each month, we nominate a different member of our Exceptional Connections community to have a meaningful conversation with. So be sure to get comfortable with a cup of tea or a beverage of your choice and take notes, and be sure to add comments and questions to the chat box so that we can engage in this thoughtful conversation. And around the 45-minute mark, I'll unmute the lines and invite our listeners to ask questions, share their epiphanies, their ahas, and enter into our thought-provoking conversation. So the inspiration of our bi-weekly Conversations to Connect, Let's Get Real Talks, is to create purposeful conversations. And we desire to be relevant during these challenging and uncertain times, and to support our community, to make an impact in the world, and of course, stay connected. So as we get started here, I invite you to set aside distractions and invest your attention to the conversation that's about to unfold. Look for just one idea that you can take away and put into action so you don't cheat yourself out of the time you've invested here. You're going to get a lot of great ideas from David. And our Conversation to Connect, again, this week is with that gratitude guy, David George Brooke from Bellevue, Washington. Welcome, David.
Hi, Cyndi. Hi, Chuck.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us and for being our spotlight speaker at our recent Exceptional Connections virtual event. And this is that was a teaser, and this is an opportunity for us to have a conversation about the content that you shared and to take a deeper dive. Before we get into the conversation, though, I want to just share a little bit about you in a bio format, and then we'll go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, awesome. And this is for the benefit of those who are listening who may not know David and want to know more about him. So David George Brooke, that gratitude guy, has been a speaker, coach, and best-selling author for 25 years, or over 25 years. He is a former Nordstrom store manager and has managed in the corporate world for over 30 years. His published works include That Gratitude Guy's Daily Gratitude Journal, Monday Morning Minutes, 100 Messages of Gratitude, 6-Word Lessons to Embrace Gratitude, and a number of other books on gratitude. With over 1,500 gratitude videos posted on YouTube, which is seriously impressive there, David. David has reached millions of people with his message and is considered an expert on how gratitude can enhance and improve your life. So welcome again, David.
Thank you for having me.
I've been really looking forward to this opportunity for us to just roll up our sleeves and dig in. This is a season of gratitude, right?
You bet. Oh yeah, it's the season. Thanksgiving through the holidays it's great. It's good to be grateful all year long, but there's always a big emphasis on it around Thanksgiving and then moving into the holidays.
And don't you think it's not only emphasis, but also our hearts are softer? I find that people are more like sentimental and open, and there's something about the holidays that in many cases brings out the best of us.
Yeah, I think you're right, but there is something about that just, it makes people focus on it. There's a lot of these, the toys and gifts for kids. I noticed one of the television stations is doing that, and there's the Toys for Tots and all those things. And they always kind of get heightened around the holidays. It's like the red kettle and the ringing of the bell for the Salvation Army.
Yes.
And I've always thought that's fantastic, but in a sense, it's really a shame that they don't do that all year round. But it only happens to be November and December. But it's good at least they do it. But I think it's something that, especially with gratitude, where it's I tell people all the time, it's a mindset. It's an attitude of gratitude. It's a gratitude mindset where you kind of shift your whole type of thinking. So it isn't just for 1 or 2 months, but it really is for all year long. And it's something that I have found through my research and all the different studies I've looked at and so forth, that it can just change your whole view of life. And given what has happened the last 18 to 24 months, it's more important than ever, but so many people struggle. I just think it's such a great way to show people, if you wrap your mind around gratitude and how you view your life, it just makes it much better.
Your message is so important and so timely, because you're right. It shouldn't just be relocated to the end of the year. We all get warm and fuzzy and emotional. I think it's important to have the tools that you have been teaching, and be able to access that all year long.
Right.
And for all of us to be able to, draw on that for ourselves, to share that with others. So that's really a beautiful message. So before we jump in here, I read your bio, so everyone would have an idea of, like who you are, a little bit more about where you've come from. But, you have such a heartwarming and beautiful story. So can we start with just having you share a little bit about, your journey and how you came to value gratitude and how that's such an important part of your life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I was first growing up in Spokane, we moved to Seattle in 1963. And I'd say for the first 15 to 20 years of my life, it was pretty much an idyllic life. Mom and dad together. I had 3 brothers and a sister, high school, college, all that kind of thing. My parents later got divorced, and that was kind of a snag. But really, in the big picture of things, it wasn't too bad. So it really wasn't until I was actually going out to the University of Washington, and I was a freshman, when I went out to Ingram High School here in Seattle and did a talk on how to be successful. And as I said, I was 19 and I was a freshman at the U, and I graduated from Queen Anne High School the year before. And this teacher had asked me to come out and do this talk. So I did the talk, and I remember I was all nervous. I was drinking water. My mouth was so dry. And I went and got in my car after it was over there, and I sat there by myself and thought, that's what I want to be when I grow up, is I want to be a motivational speaker. And I was 19.
Wow.
And so when I actually took the leap here 9 years ago, I was 62. So it's like 45 years or 43 years it took me to finally realize my dream of doing what I wanted to do when I was 19. But as I went through life, and then the various things happened, I had a lot of tragedies happen. My mom had been bipolar and suffered from a lot of mental illness type issues, and that was tough. And then so she then dies of cancer. My parents had gotten divorced, and my father took his own life. And then I got married and had a couple of kids, and my wife passed away, and she was 38 years old, and she passed away of a prescription pill overdose. And I remember a lot of my friends saying to me, my fraternity brothers and friends, that, gosh, it was maybe 4 or 5 years before you're even back to your old self again after Dana passed away. And as I mentioned, Connor and Kyle were 4 and 14, so they were very young. And so along the way, I have a friend that always says to me, did you mention my name in your speech? Because I do a lot of keynote speeches and things. And I go, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But he's the one that said, you should get a gratitude journal. And he always says that, did you tell him I told you that? I go, yeah, that's fine. But I got a gratitude journal, and I started, and I asked even to the speeches and talks today, how many people have heard of a gratitude journal? And it seems to be about half the people have. But I found that in writing that down, what do you write in a gratitude journal? You write everything you're grateful for. Well, is that the only thing you write? No, you can write all sorts of things, but the primary focus is, what are you grateful for? And so it started to change my life, and I could really see it gave me the best coping mechanism that I could find. And the reason why, one of the many reasons I'm so passionate about it, is because gratitude is such a healthy coping mechanism. A gratitude journal, a gratitude mindset, an attitude to gratitude, focusing on what you have versus what you don't have. I always say gratitude turns what you have into enough. So it became really powerful. And why it's so significant, especially through the pandemic, is with all the anxiety and mental illness and suicides and depression and all these things that have happened. There's all these people. What are they trying to do? They're trying to cope. I mean, that's what it is. We need coping mechanisms. Well, a lot of these coping mechanisms are very destructive and in some cases deadly. And my wife had gotten hooked on prescription pain medication, and then she took too many and she died. As I mentioned, she was 38. So the gratitude mindset and the gratitude journal became this really healthy coping mechanism of how you can navigate the ups and downs of life and go through all the hills and valleys and all those different things. I've never met anybody whose life was either all perfect or all terrible. It's always a combination, like some sort of a roller coaster. And so to me, it was something that just became such a way to help me. I thought, I've got to get this message out there. And then almost miraculously, I thought, wait a second, you always wanted to be a speaker. I never knew what my subject was going to be. I was going to be a motivational speaker. So I went, why not gratitude? And so that involved then putting together a talk about gratitude with 6 modules, embracing gratitude. And it takes as long as it takes, and the gratitude journal and sharing gratitude and things like that. that I did I did several of those modules the other day in the talk for exceptional connections. And it just kept morphing and growing. And then one day I decided I needed a tagline, and I became that gratitude guy. And it just kept growing. And it's absolutely the most incredible, outside of my raising my two sons, who are my two favorite people on this planet. Kyle is 37 years old, and Connor's 27 years old, and they're both just my rock star sons, as I call them. They're both just phenomenal. And then after making sure they were raised, getting this gratitude guy thing going and building it to the point that I get to travel now all around now and give these big talks, and now they're back in person again. It has just been so gratifying. And so I was on a mastermind call the other day, and they said, they're asking all the 20 people on the call, how do you measure success? And I said, for me, when it came my turn, I said, I measure success on how many times a week somebody tells me that I changed their life. And I get notes and cards and emails and texts. And I got one yesterday about a YouTube video, and this video made my day. I'm going to watch it every single day for the next 2 weeks and so forth. So knowing that you can impact lives. And I think, like when you and I met, Cyndi, and thinking about exceptional connections and connecting people and getting like-minded people, anytime you can put two people together that have a similar mindset, that want to take action and want to impact other people and help other people, the trajectory of their life, is a phenomenal thing. So it's just grown and grown and grown. And it's just been, outside of my two sons, it's been the best thing I've ever done.
Mm. Well, I feel your passion, and really it's a mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a mission. It's more than just I want to be when I grow up.
Right.
You're fulfilling your mission, and it's a beautiful thing, David. And you're right. We have different coping mechanisms out there. The distinction is which are healthy and which are not, which are detrimental, which will help you and which will hurt you. And I love the question you pose. Why not gratitude?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, why not?
Exactly.
People think that it's underrated, right? People think that, okay, if I, running's great because you get those endorphins.
Right.
But you got to keep running.
Right.
And and that high keeps increasing too, right? It becomes more and more elusive. So, I really commend you for dedicating to your life to something that, the message that needs to be heard. We need to share it. And I think that sometimes simple things are not valued as much.
That's true. That's true.
Right?
And I think as you just said, multiple things, I think of the term suite of services, wherever you see that one, it says, these are all the things we offer you. It really isn't just gratitude. It's a whole bunch of things. And I do a couple of posts on LinkedIn every single week. And the one I did a couple of weeks ago was called the Power Hour. Everybody should start their day with a Power Hour, just for you. No cell phones, no cameras, no laptops, no anything. The first hour you get up. So it's not just the gratitude mindset and the gratitude journal, but for me, it's getting up, taking a shower, getting ready and so forth, making the coffee, having my green juice, vitamin juice and my vitamins, and then writing my gratitude journal for 5 minutes, and then going and meditating for 15 minutes, and then stretching for 15 minutes, and then maybe a yoga pose or something. And then the hour's done. I'm all set for the day, turn on the computer and start getting to the electronic version of our day. So it's those things that are together. And one of the things I mentioned in that same package of those various things, which ties back into you and me, is it's very important that you hang out with people that positively affect you. And the idea that you're known by the company you keep, and you hear this one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. But it's really true. And I've been around people in my life that are really negative, and I just managed to ease away from them. I don't criticize them or judge them or anything. It's just not healthy for me. So the people you hang out with are very important too. And I wrote in this one article about, I know that a rising tide raises all boats, but you can't help the boats that have leaks in them. There's going to be certain people that, whether you can have the rising tide, they're still going to sink. And as an example, sadly for me, one of the best examples I had of what not to be was my father. And he was one of these. I'd say, good morning. He'd go, what's good about it? And I just thought, what a terrible thing to tell a child. There were 5 of us, and what's good about it? And I'd say, gosh, I'm looking out at Lake Washington from where I live, and it's beautiful out. And I'd say, it's a beautiful day. He goes, it's going to rain tomorrow. And I never understood, it's a choice. And I mentioned this on the talk, but it's so important to recognize that we have a choice. Every day we get out of bed, left or right hand side of your bed, up, down, negative, positive, grateful, ungrateful, happy, sad. Those are choices. And it always reminds me of when people say something to you about, they start a sentence with, you don't understand. I just back up, because the minute I hear you don't understand, I know an excuse is coming. Well, I can't do the gratitude journal because, see, you don't understand. See, I don't have as much time or this, and we all make our own time. But I tell people too that when you were talking back about destructive coping mechanisms and drugs and alcohol and all these things all fall into that category. And I don't judge people. People are just trying to self-medicate. They're trying to soothe or ease their pain. But every time when I do this, one of the reasons I like the little exercise in the gratitude journal is when you write in the gratitude journal, you write a number that is your daily number. And that's how you feel. It's taking your temperature 1 to 10. 10 is the best day of your life, and 1 is maybe a terrible day. So as an example, today when I wrote in there, my initial number was 9. I'm usually pretty good, 8.5 or 9. But then at the bottom, after I write in the gratitude journal, I write a number, now is a 9.5. It went up a half just by focusing on the things that I had going. And as I mentioned to you, I had a really busy week. But it was very fulfilling. There was somebody including talking to the Exceptional Connections group and everything. So it's really about kind of putting a package together, not just the journal, but all these other things that are kind of that mindset that gets you in a positive direction. And people's choices in life. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just negative, and I just think it's unfortunate. I've always been pretty positive and pretty energetic, and it's a pretty good way to go through life. But gratitude has just been like a power assist to the whole thing.
Well, there's so much in that one word, gratitude. And you've done such a great job of just encapsulating that, because, and it just it hasn't dawned on me in the past, but it's not just this airy fairy, gratitude, like Pollyanna kind of, mindset. You have to really, what I'm hearing you say is you're taking care of your temple, you're taking care of your body, you're taking your supplements, you're exercising, you're, being careful who you associate with, because that, negative energy can affect your, choices and your energy as well. So it really is an integrated approach to wellness in that one word, gratitude.
That's really true. And I think that's a great point. In fact, I think when some of the companies got smart when they changed it from sick pay to wellness pay, and that people, they'd give them a credit for all the days they weren't sick. And so because they noticed if there was people were given 25 sick days, the average person had 24 or 25 sick days every year, right up till that limit. So it's again, how you kind of look at it. But you mentioned something else too that's really important to me, and I didn't put it in that suite of services too, but that's exercise. Exercise. Every book I've read, and I'll be 72 next month, and life is flying by. I can't believe it. But every book you read on aging and health and everything, almost every time, number one is exercise. And so I'll do a typical day, and I had a busy morning today, and then I've got to record a podcast at 2:00. I've got CyndiONeill-Dady on January, I think 13th is her podcast, guest starring appearance. And so I record these ahead of time and do them. And I thought, boy, I'm going to get out late today, but it's going to be probably 3:00. So I'm gone for 2 hours because I walk 8 to 10 miles, and I'll be gone from 3 to 5. But during that time, I listen to my podcasts. I see make sure I need to do any fine tuning. I listen to tons of other podcasts. I listen to Audible books. I make notes on my notepad. I call people I owe some calls to because I've got the AirPods on. And that 2 or 2.5 hours feels like 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes when I'm done. So, but it's again, back to the mindset. And the reason I even bring this up is because back to this thing, I cannot say it enough about, it's a choice that you have. And as an example, I've had people say to me, I won't mention any names, I'm so jealous of you. You have the time to do that every day. And I go, oh, really? So now you work 8 to 5? Yeah. Yeah. I'm jealous because you work for yourself. Is that gratitude? I just wouldn't have 2 hours. Okay. So what time do you get up? Oh, at 5. So you got 3 hours there, and then you get home at 5, you go to bed at 9. So there's 4. So you couldn't figure out 2 hours in there. So it's, what is the old line? The only excuse is a poor one. So I think, to me, if it's something that you feel strongly about, if it makes such a difference, why wouldn't you want to do it every day? So it's the exercise, the gratitude, all about wellness. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it is all those things combined.
Well, we all have the same 24 hours,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, how much money you make, no matter
Exactly.
how old you are, we all have the same 24 hours. It's how you use them. And I love the way you frame it just to, get us going here. And we all get to choose.
Yeah.
It's our daily choice, how we fill our day, what things we do to take care of ourselves and to make a difference in others' lives. Before we go on, I do want to touch on something that you mentioned. You had the experience with some negativity from your dad.
Mm-hmm.
But, when I hear someone talk about, I hear you explain that, what I hear is contrast. So in your life, your gift from your dad was contrast, that you saw that was his default for whatever reason.
Right.
Not making him bad or wrong. He had his upbringing that caused him to have that reaction. But the gift for you was contrast, to know what you didn't want. And so you're embracing the opposite, right? You're embracing gratitude.
Great point. That's a great point, because I'm glad you said that, because it's not only that, sometimes you can take it and say, well, this is a model of what I don't want to be. So I know what I don't want to be, which then leaves what I'm going to be. But I think the other part of that that's so powerful is I've used it of sort of to motivate me. Oh, really? Seriously? You watch and see what I can do. And I know I mentioned, I think the other day, I walked off the stage of 1,000 people in Las Vegas, and it was live streamed. It was a huge casino in the ballroom. And sometimes I want to just look up to the sky and go, so Dad, how's that look for you? How am I doing here? Am I changing some lives here? So sometimes you're right. You can use that as a great motivator.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So, thank you for being so transparent and sharing your journey, because we all have things that have happened in our life that are difficult. Right. But I'm personally grateful for every single one of those things. I wouldn't take any back, because it's made me who I am today.
True. That's
and
so
I'm
true.
grateful for the journey. It's been, often painful, but, I've chosen to embrace gratitude and growing and compassion and forgiveness in the midst of all of that. And so I'm grateful for who I am.
And I think that's such a great point too, because it's like, I think what was it, the butterfly effect or something? If I hadn't taken a left and said, oh, Cyndi, I'm David, David, I'm Cyndi, or Cyndi introduced herself to me, or I did to you, we wouldn't be sitting here today. If it hadn't been for that episode 10 or 15 years, whatever that was. And it's so important, because I keep coming back to this thing, you get to have this choice. And to me, one of the things I've noticed the most is I've said, I think to manage people, like in big Nordstrom stores, I had Lowe's, 500-600 people, and to raise children, I think those two skill sets require the same number one skill, and that is you have to set a good example. And if you don't set a good example, your employees are not going to follow you, your kids are not going to follow you. And so how you do that? So if you model the behavior, and in this case, gratitude and how to look at it, both Kyle and Connor are very much kind of in my mindset, because they've been watching me and have seen me through all this and how it makes this difference. And they also, I've noticed both of them have also moved away a little bit from some of the other negative people, because you just can't help everybody. You try to model that behavior. Some people get on board, some don't. Right. And I always think too, of all the cliches, it's still my favorite. You can lead a horse to water. I mean, there's only so much you can do. You can show it and model it and give them the gratitude journal and say, and so forth. And for me, what's so gratifying is enough people get it that it's worth it to me, because I'll look out into a big audience, and there you see a lot of people, they're looking at you and they're paying attention. And I don't typically use PowerPoint. I'm just talking to the audience like this, and you can see the heads nodding and everything. And then I look over, here's somebody on their phone, and they're kind of like texting and things. Like, oh, well, right. I guess I couldn't get everybody. I can't get everybody in the audience, but but if I get the majority or more than I don't get, that's a good day.
But that's the way of the world. I mean, I'm Absolutely. A gardener, and when I sow seeds, not every one of them is going to come up.
That's true. Good analogy.
And so we just have to know that's how things work. It's not that you did anything wrong. It's just that they don't sprout.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
It reminds me of one of my, how in high school, we always had to have a quote that you put in your yearbook. Right. Mm-hmm. So mine was Robert Frost, two roads diverge in the woods, and I took the one less traveled, and it's made all the difference.
Yeah.
And so that's really kind of the visual that when you were talking, I see that's what your choice was at some point in your life.
Right.
And it's made all the difference.
Yeah.
And, I just want to acknowledge you, David. It's made all the difference for you and for so many people in the world because of the difference that you've made.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And I will take the road less traveled analogy and take it a step further. On the road to success, there generally isn't much traffic. So
exactly. Exactly.
There's a lot of people that don't want to make a difference, but I think it's neat. And it's something about just, I guess, one of the things, and I think I'm trying to think if I talked about the other day, but this module, I may not have had time, but find yourself, find your talent, find your passion, find your purpose. I believe everybody wants to find their purpose at some point. I think we're hardwired to want to figure out why we're here. And so the steps that I tell people to go through is first get that great relationship with yourself, then figure out what your talent is and try to be a square peg in the square hole, and then find out what you're passionate about. And boy, once I got into this and started speaking to people, and I became so passionate about it. I think those three things combined will lead you to probably what your purpose is. And for me, the purpose is spreading this word to as many people as I can. And it's interesting because now I was on another mastermind, and they said the formula for a speaker was, I think it was practice, or knowledge was the first thing, having the knowledge of your subject, practice, practice, practice. And then I think it was time or something. And I think I've done 800 or 900 talks in the last 8 or 9 years since I started this. And it's interesting because it's very, again, gratifying, but people, oh, you're such a great speaker and I loved your talk and you made such a difference, which is wonderful. And as my mother always taught me, there's one thing to say, just thank you, or thank you. That's nice of you to say. You don't discount somebody's compliment or shucks or anything. You just go, thank you. I very much appreciate that. But what is interesting is that when you see those people that have that get that knowledge, I tell them, well, thank you. However, the message is what's really important. I'm happy I was able to convey it, but it's the message. Did you get the message about gratitude? Because that's the content that I want you to get. And I did a speaker training yesterday or day before, and one of the modules is don't say So you have people that are speakers that are out there telling you this, but every other word is an So when you learn to be really careful about your filler words, it makes the message that much more powerful. And what is the goal? The goal is to get the message to as many people as you can. Hopefully they're not on their phones, but like you said, some seeds don't sprout. Get as many seeds planted as you can. And so, yes, there's things about being a good speaker, which there's good basics and fundamentals, but really I said the star of the show is gratitude and what it can do for you.
Right. And as you said, focusing on what you have, not what you don't. Focusing on the glass half empty, not half full, or half full, not half empty. Got that wrong.
Exactly.
Flip that.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I use that term, gratitude turns what you have into enough. That's one of my favorite things. And that's another one of the sayings I use a lot of this. And I always, this gratitude journal is always by my side, and it's in when I travel, it's in my briefcase because I write in it faithfully every day and I sell a lot of them and so forth. But there's a saying, a quote in there that I wrote, which is so important too, to really take it to a step further. And that is, if you think about it, it's like a dream. If you talk about it, it inspires you. But if you write about it, it empowers you. And there's something about writing and this little instrument called a pen or a pencil. I am so grateful to CyndiONeill-Dady for inviting me to Exceptional Connections. It plants it in your brain. And even this keyboard is not bad. And I've had some people say, well, I just think about it. I said, well, that's fine. But and you can write it and you can see it and it plants it in your brain better, not to mention getting older as I am, you want to exercise your brain as much as well as you want to exercise your body. Because you can have a perfectly good body that gets dementia or Alzheimer's or something because the brain gets stagnant or what have you. But there's something about that writing. And then the other thing that I've mentioned, I could show you my bookcase here, and there's probably, these last about 3-4 months, roughly for the amount of days that are in, about 90 entries or something like that, 100 entries. And so I've got like 60 or 70 of these. I go back and I'll think, I wonder what I was thinking back on so-and-so day. And I'll go back and look what I wrote on that day. And even though I'm writing about gratitude, I'll still make a little note in the margin, Exceptional Connections talk today, Cyndi or something like that. And it's neat. So it kind of, it's like journaling is so good for you anyway, but this is the gratitude piece with some extra pieces that you can use as a diary if you want, but very, very helpful, but really plants it in your brain.
Well, it's beautiful because it puts the context for what you've written. So then you can go back and reread it and go, oh, that's what was going on. That's right. It's not just another day. It kind of puts a marker on it.
Yeah.
Well, David, tell us a little bit about the science of gratitude, because there's actually a science to it. There's a psychology to it, right?
No, there's a lot too, and they've done a lot of studies on it, and they've done all this research and tested these people, and some would have it's like a sugar pill versus an actual pill that made some difference, and they check and see how the people did. What they found is that the people that consistently had gratitude, and they mentioned a lot of it was journaling, but even if it was just writing 3 things they were grateful for every day, or one thing, something they were focused on, it was less anxiety, less depression, better health, taking care of themselves more frequent doctor checkups, exercising more, less toxic emotions like envy, jealousy, resentment, things like that seemed to go away. And it just gave people such a better framework by just, again, focusing on what they had. So, and there was better sleep, better relationships. They just did all these studies and they came up with so many neat things that it comes back to how that brain is kind of like wired, as we've said earlier, positively versus negatively. And I mentioned, you asked me about my dad, and that's a good example too, where there's the old line about, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So if you think you can't, you're not going to do it. Well, now I'm great, I'm right. But if you think you can and you do, it's kind of that, again, that positive energy that just flows and makes such a difference. So yeah, so much of the research has been, a lot of the newer things have even come up with taking it a step further with maybe diminishing some mental health issues as well, which again, with the pandemic, sort of near somewhere further down the line when we started with this depression and anxiety and suicide, it's just heartbreaking to see how many people have suffered. And if this is something that can help them. And it was interesting. When I do workshops and classes and online things, and lots of times there's questions you mentioned maybe today and so on. I remember one about a year ago when somebody said, so I have a question. My friend's house just burned down in one of those big fires. And all he had is he and his wife and their 2 kids. What does he have to be grateful for? And it was almost like kind of like challenging me. And I said, well, the obvious thing I could say, as much as that would be horrible, is they still have each other and they still have their children and they have that. And yes, they can rebuild. But I said, but maybe even a more important aspect to me is when somebody goes through something like that, if you're going to support them, yes, you can talk about everything they could still be grateful for, or tell them what you're grateful for. But the number one thing you can do to that person, which will help them more than anything else you can do, is just listen. Don't interrupt. Don't tell them that reminds me of a time that so-and-so. I was at Dana, my wife's memorial service, holding Connor, who was 4 years old at the time, of arms. And somebody came up to me and said, I can relate to what you're going through. We once lost a puppy. And you just thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. So you don't try to relate to what you just listen to a person. Just listen. That's all you do. And once they start to slow down, just say, tell me more. And at the end of that time, they will feel somewhat better, although that's a very tragic situation. But yeah, that's, and another question was, can you be grateful when you're grieving? And that's grieving the loss of a house or a fire, but how about a loved one? And yes, it's more difficult, but there's still, I talk about a lot of times in the gratitude journal, I'll write in there, like today, I got a nice hot shower this morning. I live in a really nice condo and I have a warm bed and I have a crackling fire last night. It was kind of cold. And so it just depends on whatever you want to focus on, because really the amount of things you could focus on is really kind of infinite in many ways.
It is. And again, we get to choose.
Mm-hmm.
We get to choose what we want to focus on. We get to choose the kind of life we want to have. Yeah. And I think the important thing, that I just want to acknowledge that you're doing in the world is to put gratitude up there as a choice. Because some people think, the world's a mess and they just go down that rabbit hole. Right. They don't understand and realize that they actually can just say, okay, this is what's happening, but this is how I'm going to respond.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
that's the point, because they say, it's not the action, it's your reaction that is what determines what kind of course you have. And again, I try to be very careful especially like when I mentioned my father and different people, that I understand that there's a lot of people that are just negatively programmed. I've even thought back on my father as an example, and I thought he was programmed. That was the generation where the mothers raised the kids. He didn't have a very good relationship with his father, and they went through the world wars and they went through the depression and things like this. And I can't imagine what that was like. So it's sort of how you're raised also, and as I've said to somebody, some of us were fortunate to win the birth lottery. And all of a sudden we come along, we've got two good parents, and other people don't have two good parents, and so a lot of it does have how you're raised. But I've tried to understand the negative mindset and wonder why it just is. There's more people sometimes that are negative. I've said for years, for whatever reason, you could walk down the street and get 10 people and say, this is my friend Cyndi, and I'm David, and we're going to open Cyndi and David's chocolate chip cookies. We're going to open a store down here. My contention is 8 or 9 people out of 10 would tell us what's wrong with that. Are you kidding me? Another chocolate chip cookie? There's millions of those. You're never going to make it. You can't. I go, so who decided that 80 or 90% of the people would be negative? I don't know. That's just how it's kind of worked out.
Yeah, I mean, we're just offering another choice. Love, hate, forgive, there's all kinds of options out there on how we can respond to things, and we get to choose. But the thing is, I think it's important to be a Pied Piper. And that's what I see you as. You're raising the banner for gratitude. And that one word encompasses so much. It's not just, again, Pollyanna, let's put a smile on our face and forget what's happening. It's choosing in the midst of what's going on in your life, in the world, it's choosing to embrace gratitude, embrace the good, to forgive. So there's so much tied into that one word.
Yeah, true. It really is. And there's just so many things it can do. And that's why I think that, and I always tell people, I may have mentioned this on the talk the other day, but when people say, well, if there's just one takeaway you could give me, or one thing, if I heard nothing else you said, and it sounds trite, but it's really just give it a try. Give it a try, because people do these other coping mechanisms, and they smoke and they drink and they do drugs, and people die, and then they have bad things happen to them. And I think it was Dr. Phil with the line, how's that working for you? So it clearly isn't doing the job. But I'll tell people that if you do the gratitude journal, that's 5 minutes a day. But how about just starting with a couple of sentences, or just a couple of words, or just before you go to bed, write down on a little piece of paper by your side of your bed the 3 things you're grateful for that day, just to start it, to get the momentum, because it's so powerful. But start with something. And I've said it many times, it's better to do less than you hope for than nothing at all. And
say that again.
It's better to do less than you hope for than nothing at all. And so anytime you have a chance to just get the momentum, and if somebody's really, I'm so busy, then just write down one word, and when I do the gratitude exercises, I never tell people what they should write on the cards, because I hand out the 3x5 cards and they write what they're grateful for and so forth. But I know if it's me, and I don't tell them because I want them to come up with themselves. But the number one thing I'm grateful for, after, my 2 sons are second, but number 1 is health. Because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
That's true.
It's just so, how can you not be healthy? Just sometimes I just sit here and I just go, man, everything works. My elbows feel good. My hips feel good. My knees, I don't have to have a knee replacement. The brain seems to be working. It's not haywire. How can you not be grateful for that?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and you're focusing on that too. And that's what increases it. So you've shared with us some ways to maximize gratitude in your life. So is there one thing that you can leave our listeners with that's made the biggest difference in your life or has helped others?
I would say the one thing, similar to what I just said about just writing down one word at night, is take some time somewhere in the day to give a minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is to gratitude. I kind of look at it the same way. I've settled on 15 minutes for a meditation practice. I'll get a meditation on YouTube. 15 minutes is just about right. Half hour is kind of long. 5 minutes is kind of quick. So just take a moment, as you would anything else on your day, just to reflect on what you're grateful for. And I think that's why those other things, the exercise piece, and then you make dinner and you go to work and you do all these things, and you take care of the kids or whatever it might be. But even if you just go into your bedroom and just sit down in your bed for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, and just think about what you're grateful for. If you just did that alone, you'd start to see the momentum, and then all of a sudden it's 2 or 3 things, and then you're writing in a journal, and then it's more. And gosh, I mean, I look at the gratitude journal. For me, some people write in the evening, but most, I think, write in the morning. It's similar to brushing my teeth. I wouldn't leave the condo without brushing my teeth, and I would never leave or start my day without writing in the gratitude journal. So,
I love that you shared that, because I was just going to ask you, when's the best time to express gratitude in your day, whether it's morning or afternoon. But when you talk about brushing your teeth, well, we should brush our teeth more than once a day, right?
Yeah, well, that's true too. Yeah, so it could be brushing before you go to bed. And
so sometimes, that could be, I think that's really good. And sometimes the dentist will say every time you eat a meal, right?
Yeah, that's true. True.
So I love the pairing of that. So in addition to doing that for yourself, morning, afternoon, evening, whenever it works for you, to just kind of take stock of your day, you talk about the value of sharing gratitude with others.
Right.
So, and how, that enhances the whole experience. There's accountability because you're saying it out loud, you're hearing it for yourself. So and another tell us thing more about that.
Well, we did that on the talk a couple of days ago, and sharing gratitude, which is the module I generally wrap up with. And one of the things I'm really fond of is, if you want to help yourself, help other people. And one of the ways you can help people is you can go out and ask them if there's anything I can do for you or support you or whatever. But another great example is what we did the other day is the 4 T's, as I call it: text, telephone, tweet, and tell. Most people do the text. And that is, what a great idea to every day to take 30 to 60 seconds and text somebody in your life to tell them how grateful you are to have them in your life. And you can think of I can think of a ton of people. In fact, I should almost incorporate that in part of my power hour, and then the messages as you get back: thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I was just thinking about you the other day. I'm doing great. But you have to, one of the rules is you have to use the word grateful. I am so grateful to have you as my friend. I'm so grateful to know you. I'm so grateful for our friendship, whatever it might be. But that would be a great tip, is do that once a day for the rest of your life. And once you go through all your friends, and you can start over and go back to friend number 1, do it again. But I think a lot of people have a lot of contacts and people that they know. And when people get those texts, and I use that in the live audiences when they hold up their phones, they bring them up to the book table. It's just hilarious. But so many of them, oh gosh, what was it the other day? I'm going to have to use this in a future talk. And she told me at the book table that there's ones I've said when it says, I'm grateful for you too. What do you want? And there's that kind of response. Or, did you sure you sent this to the right person? But there was one, and I wrote it down because I want to get it right, but I'll do it in my next big talk. The gal shows it to me, and it said, is everything okay? Is there a hotel shooter? Is there an active shooter going on? Like, why would you text me about this? Do I need to call the police? I went, God, and it made me realize, unfortunately, with some of these events we've had, because that was in a big hotel. And she was saying, why would you be telling me you're grateful? There must be an active shooter. But and of course, then she called him and it was fine. But yeah, it's something we don't do enough. It's like sending somebody flowers. Can you ever send flowers to somebody too many times? It's just that being thoughtful, and people really like it when you do that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, David, so much great information, so much heart. And I really appreciate that, your desire to make a difference in the world and to make people aware of the power of gratitude, and that it is an attitude that we need to embrace. And I was thinking about building that gratitude muscle. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. I mean, it can atrophy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And, it reminded me of the whole power of working out and exercising. It has to be built up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Over time. And so thank you so much for that reminder. So before we open it up for Q&A, I want to give you an opportunity. You've mentioned your gratitude journal. And so share with those who are listening on the replay or live, how they can get a hold of your journal, or even create one for themselves.
Absolutely. And I do have them, that they're called That Gratitude Guy's Daily Gratitude Journal. So my website is thatgratitudeguy.com, and you can get them on there. You can also go to Amazon and just type in That Gratitude Guy's Daily Gratitude Journal, and it'll pop up. And then right now on the website, there is buy one, get one half off, and those are signed by me. So it's nice to go to the website. And so that's an easy way to get that. But then you mentioned too, anything, if a person has a spiral notebook, the nice thing about this gratitude journal to me is that it's all ready to go. And this is all filled in on a day that I've already written, but it has a template, which is really nice. It says the day and the date, the daily number, the two highlights of your day down here, a quote, and then this is special occasion or event. So you don't have to have a diary. This is what you're grateful for. This is what you're going to be grateful for. So it kind of walks you through it and gives you a template, which is nice. But if somebody says, well, I don't want to spend $20 or whatever, a spiral notebook is fine. Just have something. But that writing piece is very, very important. And then also they can find out about my coaching too, which is on my website. And I offer a 60-minute complimentary consultation on gratitude coaching for people that are interested in getting some coaching, that whether they're dealing with personal issues or relationships or finances or life or stress. And boy, you plant gratitude around that, it can really, really help people to get on the right track.
Right. And also we want to mention, if anybody's looking for a inspiring speaker,
yes,
they can contact you, right?
Thank you. I always appreciate that. I would say 75% of my talks I get from referrals. So I always appreciate that. And you never know. And it's, I did one recently where she typed in gratitude keynote speaker in Google and my name came up. So the search things work pretty well too with a lot of social media posts. But yeah, but I really rely on referrals. So absolutely any convention, association, annual meeting, different types of things like that, any big groups that get together, I love to go do those talks to get the message to as many people as I can.
Yes. And what occurred to me also is with your gratitude journal, for those who are looking, and I'm going to go get one for myself, to get it, with your offer, give one to a friend, especially with the holidays, family member. And then also it's a great template. Then you can ongoingly, if you don't want to keep getting them after you have it, to use a notebook, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a good thing to follow. Absolutely.
So kind of like some people, this is very daunting.
Yeah.
A blank notebook. And even if you've you laid out the template for us, it still can be daunting. So just want to encourage people to take advantage of the gratitude journal that you put together. That's very, you've thought through it in terms of where
and honestly, Cyndi, it's 5 to 6 minutes, maybe 5 to 7 minutes. So that template makes it easier. You're exactly right. But you're not talking about you have to sit down there for a half hour. But it's 5, 6, 7 minutes. So it works well.
And if it's easy, we'll do it. We all know that, right?
That's true. That's true. Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and open up. So if there's any questions or insights or anything that you've shared that was of value to our listeners, and then for those on the replay, I encourage you to get a hold of David and get to know him and perhaps invite him to speak to your group.
Great. Thank you.
I see you unmuted yourself, Chuck.
I did. So, David, thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it because I've been a pretty big networker over the many years here, and I'm astonished. I never ran across you before, and because I love your message.
Oh, thank you, Chuck.
And I've been involved with a lot of groups that, they promote this kind of stuff. I was really surprised. I thought, my goodness, how come I have never run across you before? And so I am grateful that actually Cyndi brought you into the group, and I've got a chance to see what you do. And,
oh, thank you, Chuck.
Because I must admit, when before Wednesday, I was saying the gratitude guy, it's like, why? I mean, it's like, I don't fully appreciate, lectures on gratitude or coaching on gratitude. I thought it never dawned on me that was a thing, that because gratitude to me was simple. I'm grateful for this and that,
right.
But apparently it is more, there's more depth to it than I thought.
Yeah, that's a great point, Chuck. And I think that when you research the #1 topics for speakers, I think currently it's leadership, time, work-life balance, HR issues and so forth. And the thing that I always come back with is it's great to get a talk on leadership, and that's what do you speak about? But I don't think people who do talks on leadership get told that they change their life. And one of the things that I notice, even with this big group in Las Vegas, or a lot of the ones I've gone from 1 person to 10,000 soldiers at Joint Base Lewis McChord for Suicide and Prevention Awareness Week. And the thing that is I think that makes my eyes, I don't use PowerPoint. I want to look right at Chuck. I want to look right at Cyndi. I want to watch all those people nodding their heads. But there's probably, on the average 60-minute keynote, there's probably 7 or 8 exercises that we do, and standing up and turning to the partner, writing on the 3x5 card, the exercise in the front, the one on the back, doing this, and then telling me which direction is it going. And then the $20 bill, and people, I always say, what's your biggest takeaway? Oh, I love the 3x5 card. I love the $20 bill, you know, whatever it might be. So making it experiential is really important to plant it in your brain. Cause I've watched, again, a ton of speakers. I thought they were great. Ask me the next day, I can't remember anything. So it's just I'm very passionate about it, and it's interesting because when you say, well, I haven't run across you before, it's such a big world out there that you never know who you're going to find. And I was doing a talk, doing a Zoom with people down in a sort of a brewery winery thing in California. I'm going to do a talk for them in April, and the 2 gals go, "You're famous. We see you every week." And I wanted to go, "No, I'm not. I'm not famous." And so, but we see your Monday Morning Minute. We've heard about you, and you know, so you just never know who you're going to impact. But I think one of this, like exceptional connections, you can't open your doors the first day and have a bunch of connections. It just builds, and it's the networking piece. And so I just really have come to so enjoy the journey. So Chuck didn't know about the gratitude guy yesterday, but he does today. So that's 1 more person. So it's just fun to watch it build.
Yeah, well, thank you. I really like it because I'm an optimistic person. And so I've always had the attitude, like, I'm my own worst enemy, so everything else is okay.
Yeah. That's funny. That's funny. That's good.
Because it to me, it just keeps me realistic and stay positive, because I really just hate negative people.
Well, and I'm sure you've had negative people in your life, Chuck. And that's when I was saying earlier, I don't know where that comes from. I mean, maybe it's their upbringing, but it's just, I'm just glad we're on the positive side.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And thank you. I really appreciate
you bet
you a little bit. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you so much.
Of course, Cyndi's great. I mean, nobody's more grateful than Cyndi.
I know.
And she's so positive. And her and I have been working together with Exceptional Catch, what now, 6-7 years anyway. And she's been a wonderful experience for me.
Yeah, excellent.
My life.
Yeah.
I really appreciate working with her, and we've had a lot of fun.
Well, and when I think of Cyndi, among many other things, I think about her energy and her 1,000-watt smile. And, you know, they're just, you don't really appreciate energy sometimes until you run into a lot of people that don't have any. They don't really just have a lot to bring to the table. And it's, again, I've always been very energetic and excited. In fact, I said the other day, I have to always slow myself down because I start talking fast, and I get gratitude is going to change your life. And I'm telling you, if you really want to pay attention to this, and I think, okay, calm down, Dave, calm down.
Yeah.
Go down a little bit. So
I have a little saying. Sometimes when I get stuck on something, I say, okay, what would Cyndi do?
Yeah, I like that.
Oh, you guys. Well, I want to bring this conversation full circle here. I want to appreciate you guys for being on the line, and David, for your contribution to our Exceptional Connections community, and for everybody that's going to listen to this replay ongoingly here. Thanks, Chuck, for joining us. But I want to just kind of circle back to something that you shared earlier in our conversation, David. You talked about, never knowing, meeting people, how, our humble meeting, I think it was in a Panera, restaurant or something like that, that we connected. So one of the kind of my mantras that I've come to really value is imagine viewing every chance encounter as a connection that could change the course of your life.
Mm.
And really, that's something that's, become near and dear to my heart, and my message in bringing people together is, not stepping over anybody, valuing every connection.
Yeah.
Not every relationship is going to be a close friendship.
Right. Right.
But if you look at it that way, you're not looking out like there's a person out, you're being present.
Right.
And that's one thing that I'm, my biggest takeaway from you this week in having you be a speaker for our community, and then this conversation today, is to really the value of being present.
Yeah. So important. So important. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing that gratitude does too, because it really does keep you focused on your blessings and your abundance, and it focuses on your blessings, not your lack. And anything that keeps you present to this day, this moment we have right now. Yesterday is gone, tomorrow's not here yet. So it's just something about it. It's good. It's so good for your brain. It's just like the meditation thing. That's all about being present too. It helps a great deal. When you're focusing and writing those things down, you're grateful for it. Really helps.
Good for your brain and your body. So, okay,
Absolutely.
This is our last event we're doing for 2021. You are closing the year for our community and our message. So what would you like to share in closing with the world, with our community, as we close 2021 and move into 2022 and the unknown, but so many blessings that are coming our way?
The unknown is very traumatic for a lot of people, and we're in very uncertain times. And so it's a bit of a theme from me, but I would say when you think about that roller coaster ride of life, and it goes up and down, and when everything is up, everybody loves us, everybody returns our phone calls, everybody thinks we're great. And when we're down, you can't get anybody, you can't reach anybody, you can't seem to find anybody to talk to. So wherever you are in that journey, I just offer this whole gratitude mindset and really a gratitude journal as such a great way to give you kind of a power assist, because life, I've never met anybody where it's all up or all down. It's always been the roller coaster ride. And again, when you're high up in the top of the road, that's fun. But when you're down in the lower parts, which by the way is where you learn all your lessons. And so it's just important to have somebody that can be your sort of power assist, if you will. And that power assist is gratitude. And if you really focus on it, as you said, be present, give it that opportunity every day, just that 5 minutes for a gratitude journal, just that 5 minutes to sit down on your bed and think about everything you're grateful for, and try to think about it in priority order. Your health, typically, maybe your family, your children, your spouse, whatever it might be. The fact you have a nice roof over your head or whatever. If you allow that to take you forward as we go through, again, more uncertain times, you'll be amazed how much it'll help you. It really can.
Beautiful message. Well, thank you so much again, David. Really appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Blessings to you. And for those who are listening, thank you for being part of our 38th Conversation to Connect, Let's Get Real. Exceptional Connections networking events are hosted the second Tuesday of every month, and we endeavor to offer the first Wednesday and third Wednesday Conversations to Connect. But I just want to leave you with, remember to make every connection an exceptional connection. Signing off. Thanks, guys.
Bye.